The red dust of the village path rose in clouds around their ankles as Kofi and Django hauled the heavy buckets from the well. Every muscle in their arms burned, but they moved in rhythm, two bodies working as one. By dusk, the labor ended. They retreated to the gnarled trunk of the old mango tree, the only patch of shade left in the parched landscape. They shared a single bowl of maize porridge, passing it back and forth until the bowl was scraped clean. Kofi leaned his head against the rough bark, his gaze fixed on the shimmering horizon. "We will build a stone house, Django," he said, his voice low but certain. "Walls that hold the cool air. A roof that does not leak when the rains finally come." Django nodded, his calloused hands moving instinctively to the roots of the tree. He pressed his palms into the dirt, feeling for the cold, hard edge of the hidden tin buried deep within the earth. In that quiet space, the bond between them felt as permanent as the stone they intended to stack. The sky turned a bruised, permanent white. The heat did not just arrive. It settled into the marrow of the land, heavy and suffocating. Within weeks, the green stalks in the fields curled into brittle gray skeletons that snapped under the slightest breeze. The village, well, once a reliable source of life, began to groan. Kofi and Django spent hours hauling up nothing but thick, gray sludge. They dug deeper, their shovels striking rock and dry, compacted clay that offered no moisture. The air grew thin, tasting of scorched earth. Every morning they woke to find the horizon shimmering with heat haze, the promise of rain replaced by a relentless, blinding glare. The livestock grew thin, their ribs visible beneath matted hides, and the village fell into a strained, hungry silence. Kofi watched the mango tree, its leaves turning yellow and dropping one by one, leaving the branches skeletal against the sun. Every day was a battle against the drying earth, and every night, the silence grew louder, pressing against their chests like a physical weight. The night was absolute, a moonless void that swallowed the village. Kofi woke to a sound that did not belong to the wind. It was the rhythmic, soft scrape of metal against dry earth. He lay still, his heart hammering against his ribs, listening. The sound stopped. A moment later, he heard the faint crunch of footsteps moving away from the mango tree. Kofi rose, his movements fluid. He reached the roots, his fingers plunging into the soil where the tin had rested for years. His hands met nothing but loose, displaced dirt. The hole was empty. A cold, hollow sensation bloomed in his chest, sharper than any hunger he had known. He stood up, his eyes straining. A few yards away, a silhouette detached itself from the shadows. It was Django. He moved with a hurried, jagged gait, clutching something. Kofi did not call out. He did not run. He watched as the figure reached the edge of the clearing and vanished into the dark expanse. The silence was heavy and final. Kofi sank to his knees, his fingers tracing the edges of the empty pit, the reality settling into his bones. 10 years of sun and wind had carved deep lines into the landscape, and into the men who survived it. A figure emerged from the heat haze, stumbling toward the village with a gait that lacked any rhythm. He reached the edge of the clearing, his frame bent, his movements erratic and pained. He stopped before the stone house, a structure that stood solid and square against the horizon. The man looked up, his eyes sunken, his skin stretched tight over bone. It was Django. He reached the threshold and sank to his knees, his weight collapsing forward. He pressed his palms against the cool stone. He tried to speak, but only a dry, choked sound escaped his throat. He bowed his head, his forehead resting against the wood. Kofi stood in the doorway, his frame blocking the light from within. He did not move to help. He simply watched the man at his feet. Kofi looked down at the man, his expression unyielding. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of dry dust and distant rain. "You took the coins, but you left me the lesson," Kofi said. His voice was flat, devoid of anger or pity. He did not invite him in. He did not offer a seat. He watched Django's hands claw at the stone, then stepped back into the shadows. He gripped the heavy wooden frame and pulled. The door swung shut with a final, resonant thud. The latch clicked into place. Outside, the village path remained empty. Django stayed on his knees, a small, broken shape against the threshold of a life he had forfeited. Kofi turned his back to the door. The lesson was complete. The door was closed.